Hey, could you put Jamal on the phone, please? I said put Jamal on the phone. I said, could you put Jamal on the phone? Why am I yelling? Why can't you hear? Anyways, is this Jamal? Seattle? How you feeling different this morning? I know you woke up and thank God this morning. Seattle? You're going to have to really perform over there. See, what that is, that's a winning football team. They win games over there. Russell Wilson might wake up and say, I'm throwing for 400 just because I feel like it. I know you feeling different. Let me call Thibodeau real quick. Tom! Listen, Tom, we got to talk. Why are you trying to coach the Knicks? Listen, we know what happens. We know what happens. It'll be just like the last one. I could come in and make a difference. You know how Dave Fisdale got fired? He lost by 42 to Denver, and the next night game, he came back to Madison Square Garden, put his key in the door, and that shit didn't work. They changed the lock on him. They said, you're fired. Goodbye. We're going to talk about Jamal Adams going to Seattle Seahawks and Tom Thibodeau finalizing. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back here right on the YouTube channel, and I've got a lot of questions this past weekend. What do you think about the signing of Tom Thibodeau as the next New York Knicks head coach? Not only that, we're going to talk about Jamal Adams. The controversial trade, we knew that Jamal Adams for many, many weeks and months has been requesting his trade from the New York Jets, and he finally got it. There were a lot of rumors that we were going to see Jamal Adams go to the Dallas Cowboys. He had personally requested to go to the Dallas Cowboys. And we have a couple of Jets players that were pretty frustrated with the trading of it. Le'Veon Bell himself had stated that he thought that Jamal Adams leaving was a sign of betrayal. Jamal Adams is one of the best safeties in the NFL, and the Seahawks threw everything except the kitchen sink to get him. First thing we're going to talk about is the Jamal Adams trade. We're also going to talk about the Tom Thibodeau Thibodeau signing as well. The Seattle Seahawks signed Jamal Adams a few days ago. Can a safety really be worth that much? This article is from ESPN, and it states, for the fourth time in 3 years, an NFL team hoping to make a leap to the next level has traded away 2 first-round picks to acquire a young superstar. In some ways, the Seattle Seahawks expected decision to trade 3 picks and a safety, Bradley McDoug, to the Jets for all-pro safety. Jamal Adams is the riskiest of the 4. Adams is a great player, but by making this trade, the Seahawks are saying that they think Adams makes them a Super Bowl contender. Is that likely to be true? Here's my grading analysis for the deal. Now, this is not actually my analysis. I'm going to give my opinion, but I'm just going to talk about here the trade. Now, here's the full trade. Consists of the Jets trading Jamal Adams to the Seahawks. Now, the Jets will get, after shipping Jamal Adams away, a 2021 and 2022 first-round pick, a 2021 third-round pick, and also safety Bradley McDoug. And in exchange, the Seahawks get Jamal Adams and a 4th-round pick in 2022. The Seahawks shipping 2 first-round picks in a row is risky. Now, we know that the Seattle Seahawks are a very good football team. That's not in question. The Jets, on their hand, were smart, because now the Jets can build to the future. The Jets can draft, because if anybody knows anything about football, it's that the New York Jets need to draft, and they need to do it sooner rather than later. The Jets get next year's first-round pick from the Seahawks, and the year after that first-round pick, as well as a third-round pick from next year, and a safety to go along with it. Now, the safety is not that big of a deal, but the 2 first-round picks make maybe some Seahawks fans scratch their head a little bit. The grading here is that the Seahawks trade was a C+, and the Jets was a B+. Trading away first-round picks is a very risky process, but here's the thing. We know what Jamal Adams is capable of. We know what he brings to the table. And the Seattle Seahawks team, where Russell Wilson went from a great quarterback to a top-tier elite quarterback, in my personal opinion this year, now gets one of the best safeties in the league. What happens if Jamal Adams gets hurt? What happens if Jamal Adams underperforms? What happens if, for some reason, the Seahawks need those draft picks more than ever? Now, we don't know how many draft picks the Seahawks will have in the first round. We're going to assume that it's probably going to be 1, because they're probably going to have a fantastic year, and they'll probably draft somewhere towards 25 to 30. The Jets, on the other hand, need those draft picks. They knew that Jamal Adams wanted to leave. So for the Jets, this was smart. For the Seahawks, it was risky. On the other hand, this is from the article, Carroll and Schneider used the 14th overall pick in their first draft on a safety out of Texas by the name of Earl Thomas, and that move worked out fine. 2 years later, they went against the grain and used their third-round pick on Russell Wilson, who was supposedly too short to be an NFL quarterback. I think that's complete BS. They landed 2 likely Hall of Famers by taking shots where other teams feared to tread. Since Wilson arrived in town, the only team to win more games than the Seahawks is the Patriots. These guys might deserve some benefit of the doubt at this point. No? In a vacuum, trading this sort of a haul for a safety, even one as talented as Adams, is a bad idea. Let's see if we can play devil's advocate and get a sense of why the Seahawks might be correct to think otherwise. Here's an argument. Maybe Carroll is that good of a coach? Well, I'm not going to read all that. The argument here, in the Seahawks' defense, states that, playing devil's advocate here, wow, there's a lot of arguments here actually. Wow, that's something different. Can the Seahawks make the cost work? Let's assume that Adams is an absolute transcendent talent and the best safety in football. When you get into finances, it becomes extremely difficult to justify giving up this sort of haul for one player unless he's a quarterback. It's a story I've had to bring up with each of these players, and while I went into detail with Mac's contract, Justice Mosqueda did a better job of summing it up. How do you measure overpaying? If you pay him market value, then whatever you traded is how much you overpaid. Wow, that sounds like one team messed up to a very high degree, and I do not like the perspective. I'll just say draft picks can be anything. Personally, my honest opinion, Seattle's a Super Bowl team. Are they going to make it? We're not sure. They were half an inch away from winning the NFC West. I don't think the Seahawks are close as they might think. They went 11-5 last season, but they outscored opposing teams by only 7 points. That narrow loss to the 49ers in Week 17 lingers in their mind. I think the Seahawks are. Would I have traded away all of these draft picks? I don't know, because it's a really risky process. I think whichever way you look at it, if Jamal Adams is anything less than one of the best performing safeties in the league, this trade is too much. This is the argument, could Adams make an impact like Tyrann Mathieu? Yeah, it's possible. The Seahawks want evidence that a safety can help push a team over the top and propel them from a perennial playoff contender like a Super Bowl winner. They don't have to look far. The Chiefs' offense was absolutely devastating after Mahomes took over as a starter, but the defense was terrible. Specifically, you could argue that Kansas City made it to the Super Bowl because it was tormented by Rob Gronkowski and its 43-40 regular season loss to the Patriots. Yada, yada, yada. Gronk had 2 more key catches in the fourth quarter while going past Eric Berry, who was injured for most of the year. The Chiefs, however, signed Tyrann Mathieu to a 3-year, $42 million deal, and he's quickly become the best safety in football. Mathieu is better in coverage. If you don't believe me, you can ask Mathieu himself, who called Adams a bigger version of me. The Seahawks obviously hope they can get the same sort of boost from their own former LSU star. Congrats to the Seahawks for getting Jamal Adams. Now, this is a little bit of a boring topic, and I apologize for that. Today's just been kind of one of those days where I feel like I'm not invested into this as much as I should be. The Seahawks getting Jamal Adams is good, but they gave away too much. They gave away too much. And does it come back to bite them in the butt? I don't know. What is the measuring rank? How can you tell if this was a good trade or not? If Jamal Adams gets hurt, is it a bad trade? If Jamal Adams overperforms or underperforms, is it a bad trade? He joins a team that is very good, will make the playoffs, and has potential to be a Super Bowl team. So we'll get back to you on that. But Jamal Adams is traded to the Seahawks. The Jets trade him to the Seahawks, and the Seahawks give away everything but the kitchen sink. But let's talk about some good news, and that's coming out of New York City. Tom Thibodeau finalizes his deal, a 5-year deal to coach the New York Knicks. Coaching the New York Knicks is all but an easy task, and we can all tell you that because there have been so many coaches that have come and gone over the last 5 years as the New York Knicks head coach. Tom Thibodeau is finalizing a 5-year deal which will make him the coach of the Knicks. Tom Thibodeau is, yada, yada, yada. New York is counting on Thibodeau, who has a history in player development as a head coach and assistant, and will put into place a program that will restore competitive infrastructure with the Knicks. From now, Rose and Thibodeau inherit a roster that needs dramatic upgrades before a return to Eastern Conference contention is realistic. Prior to the shutdown, the Knicks were 21-45 this season, missing the playoffs for the 7th straight year. Thibodeau is 11th in career winning percentage for coaches. He has 500 or more games. He has a 352-246 record in 8 seasons with Chicago and Minnesota. He comes to the Knicks after a cumulous 2+ seasons with the Timberwolves that included the franchise's first playoff berth in 14 years, and an unraveling centered on All-Star Jimmy Butler's trade demand that led to Thibodeau's dismissal as president and coach in 2019. Thibodeau has had 5 playoff seasons with the Bulls, including a trip to the Eastern Conference Finals. He was named Coach of the Year in 2011. A series of injuries to Derrick Rose played a role in derailing the Bulls' championship aspirations. Thibodeau was a Knicks assistant under Jeff Van Gundy from 96 to 04, and he has long desired to return to New York as a head coach. Orlando Magic coach Steve Clifford, a close friend of him who worked with him, found out about the news and said, "It's great news." Clifford said after the game during a video call, "As soon as we get back to the hotel, I'll call him. He's one of my closest friends. He's one of the best coaches in the league, and he understands New York. He was in New York for a long time. New York is a different animal. He understands the fan base. He understands the media, and he's a great coach. So he'll do great there." Magic point guard DJ Augustine also said that Thibodeau was a great coach, and he appreciated how hard he worked for the players. "For me, it was great. I've heard a lot of stories about Tibbs, but for me, it was great. If you don't want to play for a coach that's going to really coach you and be hard on you, you don't want to be great. So I love playing for Tibbs. He was a great coach, great guy, great motivator, and I'm happy for him and excited he got the job. That's great for him and the organization." Absolutely. Absolutely. The more I learn about Thibodeau and his style of coaching, I realize that he is a perfect candidate to come to these New York Knicks. These New York Knicks are very young. I don't think the Knicks lack talent. I think the Knicks lack a lot of chemistry and putting that talent together. There's no finisher. There's no true leader on that team. You could say Mitchell Robinson is the best player, but there's no leader. Everybody's young or very, very old. The Knicks need a coach that is going to be more than a coach than a friend. And that's where I felt like David Fizdale, all with talent, didn't fit the Knicks, because I felt that he was more of a friend than a coach. I think that he is a good coach in general, but I think with the Knicks he was, and I don't know because I wasn't in those huddles, but I think personally he was too easy on the Knicks. He was very relaxed post-game. Meanwhile, the Knicks would be on a stretch of losing 7 or 8 games in a row. The Knicks were getting blown out in games. Now, the Knicks are young, and we've seen flashes of talent. Anybody that watches the Knicks consistently can tell you that their lineup is not bad. It's just a lot of these players need guide. These players need direction, and they're not getting it. They haven't gotten it. They played a little bit better under Mike Miller when he was the assistant coach. Their defense was getting stronger. The Knicks' defense this past season was absolutely atrocious. They were giving up over 100 points a game. They weren't scoring. The Knicks would score, but they couldn't hold the lead. There was no four-quarter discipline. And I think that Thibodeau might get under the skin of the Knicks in a positive way. He's very smart. He already has history in New York. He understands New York. He understands the media. Coaching New York, Knicks, Nets, no matter who it is, it's not a difficult place, or it's not an easy place to coach. But I think with Thibodeau coming in, he brings that veteran experience. He's gotten Coach of the Year awards. He knows how to coach. He comes into a very difficult position. And this signing of Tom Thibodeau as the New York Knicks head coach couldn't come at a better time. The Knicks will now get a seasoned coach who will take, hopefully within 2 or 3 years, the Knicks are a really developed team. Are they going to win the NBA Finals? Of course not. But anything close to or above 500 for the New York Knicks in this next upcoming season would be success in my eyes, because we're not expecting the Knicks to win 55 games. We're not expecting the Knicks to win 50 games. If the Knicks could win or finish the season a couple games or floating around or a couple games below 500, that is improvement. The Knicks are not in a win now mindset. They're in a let's improve mindset. You have all of these young players who have shown so much flashes of talent, particularly this year. Mitchell Robinson, different guys that have shown that talent. The point guard situation, but they've had no direction. How can these Knicks develop true chemistry and get coached the way they should when the New York Knicks are opening and closing doors for coaches like they're going out of style? The Knicks are in a point where, my honest opinion, and this is everybody's opinion, where Dolan should just sell the team. But that's wishful thinking at this point, because we know Dolan isn't going anywhere. If Tom Thibodeau can't be the game changer or change the regression of these Knicks or the stalemate, this team is just not meant to be a basketball team. That doesn't mean let's go into next season and the New York Knicks are going to be, oh my God, They're on a 10-game win streak. Kevin Knox learns how to shoot. Consistently, that is. That's not what I'm saying. It's improvement. If each and every season for the next 3 years, the Knicks aren't getting better than the last, something's a problem. Coaches have been the problem. The team just is not good. They have potential. The Knicks aren't, when you look at the Knicks on paper, they're not a bad team. But then you see them play basketball, and you question yourself, and you say, what am I watching? Why can't they shoot? Who's playing defense? And I think a coach that has a track record of success can change those tendencies. How long does it take? We don't know. That is really what I got for you guys today. I'm very pleased with the signing of Mr. Tom Thibodeau as the New York Knicks head coach. I think that he has a very good mind and has a great direction, and I cannot wait to see him coach for the Knicks. A lot of people don't get excited about watching a coach, but I will tell you this, I am one of those people that is going to get excited. Don't expect the Knicks to make the playoffs. Don't expect the Knicks to win 50 games. But be excited because Tom Thibodeau is going to be the person that hopefully changes the trend of New York City despair. Ladies and gentlemen, Knicks World, like, subscribe, push this video out there. Have a good day.